Kia ora tātou katoa, nau mai hoki mai ki tēnei Māori Conversations anui te mihi kia koutou. E te kahurangi e Tariana, tēnā ro hoki koe. Pai ki te kete, hoi no, kanui te mihi. Tariana, I think you're on mute. Is there a... Mel, can you... Yes.
Here we are.
Koiara. There you are. Fantastic. Kapai, mōre. Kia ora to you, Tariana. Our little practice before, and I thought we were live and not even. So here we are, actually, and at broadcasting. Tēnā ro hoki koe, no mai, haere mai. Tariana, just thank you for agreeing to have a bit of a wāhi kōrero tonight. I want to mihi to the whānau at the pā, and to everybody and all the whānau by you that are, you know, ka noho i raru i te kapua pauri, ka aroha ki a koutou, ka aroha ki a tātou katoa. So, just, Tariana, just open, I'll just leave it with you just to have a bit of a kōrero and an open up as we start our kōrero tonight. Kia ora rā.
Oh, tēnā koe, Mariameno. Kanui te mahiro atu ki a koe. Me koutou hoki te taitokerau. I presume you're in the taitokerau?
Yes, you presume correctly. I certainly am.
All right.
Yes, I am. Yes, it is. It's an exciting time, Tariana. I'm really, and I have you to thank for actually and absolutely. Our, you know, a casual kōrero at in February, really, and here I am with the pleasure and the honour of sitting across from you and listening and talking with you. So I'm good to go, is what you can know. I am good to go. It is my first time in this way, stepping out this far is what I keep hearing myself say. And I've been in the field and working at various levels across sector, you know, doing all that mahi, loving working with whānau the most. And here I am now taking it to another place, really. Haria te kōrero ki te whare pāremata. Nō reira, kāmi te mihi. Tariana, I wanted to, if I can, the first time I heard you speak, we were in Palmerston North, and you were there with Fred Sadler. It was a education hui, but things had just not closed off, but coming out of Pākaitore.
Right.
That time. Te Moti Karetu was there at that hui, and yes, and I remember you then, but certainly in Pākaitore and that time, and I was sort of doing other things, but hearing all of what was going on. I guess I wanted to hear from you from that time, that whole period, that 79 days, Pākaitore. Can you just share a little bit about that, Tariana?
Yeah. Well, tēnā koe, Mariameno. It was at the time when the fiscal envelope was going around the country, if you recall, and they were due to come to Whanganui. So what we did, a group of us, we had a series of hui right through the rohe to make sure that our people, number one, understood why they were coming here. Number two, what they were offering, which was about, I think, 1% of what was stolen from us. And also to make sure that our people understood the process that the government was putting us into. So it wasn't as if we were being given a choice. They were coming to say to us, this is how much you're going to get. And there was no negotiation about that. So it was quite a tense time for us. And we thought that the only way to make sure that our people understood and were with us on this issue was to go right through the rohe and talk to each marae. And we did that. We did that. And it was really important that we do that, because quite often the government comes into the rohe and it selects who it will talk to, and really they only tell the people part of the story. So we end up in conflict with one another, because one group has this part of the story, the other group has the other part. So we decided the only way to prevent that from happening so that we could be tight together was to make sure that our people knew what was going on. And I think Luxton was the minister at the time. Nice man too, can I say? And so we were, we were kind of quite prepared for them to come to Whanganui, and they were going up to Kaiwaiki. So we decided that we wouldn't go because they expected that we would turn up and that we would, disrupt the proceedings, I suppose. So we decided we wouldn't go up to the proceedings. We would go to Pārkai-Ture. So about 300 of us went to Pārkai-Ture instead of going up to the hui. And while we were at Pārkai-Ture, we dug a hole in the ground for a po to really basically say we were there and we were settled there and we would be meeting there. Well, the mayor came down, he heard all about us being down there. He came down, he wagged his finger at us, telling us we had no right to be there and, all the usual things that they say to you. And probably it was the best thing he could have done because all it did was annoy everybody immensely. And, of course, made us decide.
Happy days. So just while we're waiting, Tariana's probably just a bit of a disconnection there. What I wanted to, here we go. Yes, we're back.
Yeah, sorry.
Kapai? No, kapai.
Yeah, so we were down there and the mayor came down, wagged his finger at us, told us we had no right to be there. It sort of created a little bit of conflict between us and one of our kaumātua. Because, our kaumātua don't like us being rude, and he thought we were being rude because of the way we spoke to the mayor. We thought he was rude to come down and speak to us the way he did, actually. But however, kaumātua give us a bit of a bollocking. And, look, truly, we love our kaumātua, and they're allowed. They're allowed to tell us off if they choose to.
Yeah, of course.
So we took it, and when the mayor left, we explained to our kaumātua what was going on. Well, he got wild then. He got wild with the mayor and everybody else.
Yes.
It was so funny, honestly. But, we ended up having a series of meetings. John Luxton came down from the hui, and he came to Pārkai-Ture despite TPK and others telling him not to. And I really appreciated that he did that because I actually worked at TPK at the time.
Yes, I saw that.
And I had asked for leave, but I didn't say how long. Oh, look, it was so funny. I mean, I laugh about it now, but, it wasn't funny for them at the time because, they kept coming down and asking me how long I was going to be and when was I going to go back. And, of course, they were all my relatives who worked in the office too.
Of course.
So, it wasn't easy for them.
No. And it probably isn't still, it probably isn't even now. And when you just said you put a po in the ground then, and I if I can just come forward a bit more, where you put another po in the ground in 2004, and significantly so, it changed our world. You did that, and we love you for it, Tariana. And I what I wanted to know, I guess, was what was at that moment in time. I mean, we read the politics, read your Crossing the Floor book. At that moment, what does it take to do that? What did it take for you to do that? What was in your mind at that moment?
Well, I grew up with my aunties, and they were extremely, they were wonderful, highly political in their own way, very Māori, and brought us up to be pono and tika, to always tell the truth, and to always do the right thing at the right time. And those things always resonated within me, I have to say. Is this pono, is it tika? And the other thing that, you know, we grew up with too was believing that you should always be driven by the kaupapa of our people. And so essentially just asking yourself those questions, you know, where did this quite fit? And yeah, so when in 2004, when the big decision came for me to make about the foreshore and seabed, I remember thinking to myself, I heard it come over the air, the radio, that Margaret Wilson, you know, essentially was not allowing Atiapa down south, Ki te Rātou, to maintain their mana whenua status over the aquaculture it was. And they weren't going to give them the same rights as other fishers, other people who were doing oyster fishing and mussel fishing. No, they weren't going to have the same rights at all. And I was stunned when Margaret came out and supported the council. I couldn't believe it. But I felt, I knew the right thing to do was to stand up to her and to the council. It didn't occur to me that it would mean eventually I'd have to go. You know, at that time, I didn't think that far ahead. And so when I spoke out publicly, naturally I got the call from the 9th floor to tell me that, you know, basically to sit wahangu and not to be saying anything publicly, that Margaret was speaking for the government and that she had given the government's position. And I said, well, it might be the government's position, but it's not our people's position. And I will stand by our people. So I kind of knew from that moment that I was not going to be in the same space as the rest of the caucus. And I got pretty isolated, as you can imagine. But do you know what? I didn't care. I didn't care. I thought to myself, if this means that I've got to leave Parliament, then that's what I'll do. Because I will be political. It doesn't matter where I am.
Yes,
you know?
yes, I do.
I will be political. And so I went and saw Archie Taiaro, who was our iwi leader. And, you know, he was so wise and so good to me. Told me off too quite often. But he said to me, he talked to me about maturata.
That's right.
He said to me, you know, it's one thing to stand up against the government, but you've got to know that the people are with you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Machu stood up against the government and the North never voted for him. And he said, and he lost his seat. And I said to him, yeah, I said, I remember that. I said, but do you know what, Archie? I don't care. I don't care if I don't get the seat. I don't care if I never get back into Parliament. But what I do care about is that our people know that they stand for something. And that this area was the only piece of land that, you know, we hadn't had confiscated from us. And the government had never realised it, of course, until this case came up down in South Island. So it was a very tense time, but also I think a really important time for us as a people to suddenly begin to understand what these governments were really doing to us, and to know that a Labour government would do it to us, for goodness sake. It was absolutely shattering. And I thought, to be honest with you, when Margaret stepped out, I thought Helen would come in and say, no, that's not right. I really did. I thought she would. Oh, no, she didn't. She came out and stood with Margaret. So, yeah, it was a really hard time. I don't want to pretend it wasn't, because it was.
No.
And it was hard for my husband, my mokopuna, who I had living with me, and for our family generally. You know, I had people stop me on the street and call me all the nicest names you could think of, in the airport. In the end, George would never let me travel on my own. It got very nasty. But do you know that I never really felt fearful, or I never ever believed I was doing the wrong thing?
No.
I didn't. Never. No. And in fact, what happened was that I agreed that I would go back and talk to our iwi, and if the iwi said to me to stay, I would. I told Helen I would do that. So my daughter and I had gone into Parliament that night, and I went home the next day, called an iwi hui, and about 300 turned up at just a day's notice. Yeah, they turned up. And look, there was only one person in my whole electorate that asked me in an email to consider staying. No one else did. When I went home, our people were very clear. No, you will leave. And I thought, wow, I just love them so much, you know, for having the strength and the courage to give the seat up. You know, it was amazing, and it told me something about my iwi, that they were worth everything that I believed. So yeah, I came back. I went to Ratana Pa, where of course, you know, I grew up right next door and virtually grew up in the Pa anyway. And I went back to the Pa, and I felt really sad because my cousin was the Tumaki, and because they were so pro-Labour, you know, he didn't want to come to the hui. And in fact, I think he went away during the hui. And you know, I understood that. I was hoping he wouldn't, but he did.
Tariana, when I'm listening to these stories, and I'm you know, I've launched myself into this campaign with all my might, and I'm determined, and I'm experienced enough to take it on, you know, take the fight on, and take it for taitokero. And I'm listening, I'm thinking, okay, right, that's you know, it takes a certain kind of backbone to do that, and which is what I was when I'm, you know, listening to you when I first heard of you in the Pākaitore time, and then here we are at Palmerston North, and you're in and you're presenting with Timothy Karetu and others, and we're at a national education hui. I'm like, okay, I can hear you then, and here we are now in this new tira hau. So we have 7 new, a lineup, a particular kind of lineup. And because of the moment where you changed the minds of many. How do you see this new tira hau, Tariana? What's your sense? You've been with, what's your sense of it all?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to stand with our people.
Yeah.
Because it is one thing to stand in a generalist political party. But what our people don't understand is that all those political parties represent the majority voice, and that is a Pākehā voice. They haven't quite cottoned on to that, which really quite disappoints me. That somehow they don't see that in voting for Labour, National, Greens, Act, who else is there?
New Zealand First.
New Zealand First, that they're voting, in fact, to support a political movement that will never, ever put them first. And I mean that. They will never be put first.
Yeah.
So when we went back in, we went to Labour because they were the government. And they wouldn't have a bar of us. They wouldn't allow us to coalesce with them. In fact, they didn't even want to talk to us. And, you know, I felt sad, not for me, to be honest with you. I didn't really want to go with them, if I'm being honest. But the fact that they would be so rude to Matua Whatarangi Winiata, that broke my heart. That, you know, to think how, you know, how dare they? It actually put me off them altogether. So we yeah, when we got in and went to talk with Labour, look, Matua Whatarangi said this to us, and this is a very important message back to our people, Mariameno, because they don't get it.
Yes.
He always used to say to us, it doesn't matter who the government is, but you will be of no use to our people if you are in opposition. So whoever the government is, that doesn't matter to you and I. We will sit with those who have the responsibility to lead this country, and we will sit with them and get the gains that we can for our people. If we don't do that, there is no purpose for us to be in Parliament. Now, I've never forgotten that. Our people have never, ever, I think, had enough faith in themselves to believe that that is a fact. You know, they think that they always talk against National to me, and of course it interests me that they do that. You know, Ratana religiously has supported the Labour Party. But can I tell you, my auntie Iriaka, Ratana, she told us that she had to go to the National Party to get the homes for their families in Ratana built. They didn't get them through Labour. They got them through the National Party. And see, with National, they don't go out and crow what they do for Māori people because they don't rely on our vote. In fact, if their Pākehā voters knew that they did as much as what they have done over the years, they probably wouldn't have voted for them either. So, you know, politics is quite a, well, in a way, it's quite a nasty business.
Yes.
Because, you know, back in the day, for Pākehā people to support anything Māori, that was a big thing. And most of them didn't. But yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, but during our term in government, we made sure that every relationship that we had was a respectful one. We may not have agreed with them, and we would tell them so. We never, ever didn't tell them. We didn't agree with them, we told them. And, you know, because we did that, we had a great relationship. We did.
Tariana, when you just talked about nasty stuff, so a bit of a nasty business. So we're just still in the campaign phase and just still putting up hoardings and, you know, having hui and so on. And just on the weekend, I met a bit of that nasty, which is very interesting, all about hoardings and putting them up in a particular spot, which we were informed that it was council land, but it seems it was not. And we'd barely put it up and carried on and got a notice that it had been torn down. So when I came back to see that is exactly what had happened on the same day, but even the way it was taken, I thought, so the whole board was taken away, the whole call flute and all. And I thought, gosh, this is a very determined person or persons. Spoke to some locals and they were quite sure that it was probably some of the young punks up at the gym around the corner. So convinced it was them. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I've come to learn by a witness that it was not. It was a leader of that community.
Oh God. Okay.
So not Māori, to be clear. So it's disappointing and not surprising. And of course, the venue straight across the road just said, listen, man, you can put up 7 across the road here. We absolutely want your hoardings there. So it's interesting, and it's very early days, you know, and we'll just move on and ignore that poor bad behaviour. But I can feel it coming. But you said to me too recently, you said, now, Mino, you don't have to become a politician, but you do have to think politically. I'm interested. Can you just share? Because I my instincts are that I can. I mean, I come from certain momo that obligates me to behave and think in a particular way, and I'm bound to fail forward. But I am interested because that was a great. I wrote that down and thought I want to check that more with you. Tell me what else. Tell me what you were thinking.
Well, you know, sometimes we think that we're doing the right thing because it may be well, the current thinking. You know, for instance, say if you looked at the whole issue around COVID and the response to COVID and the impact that that's had, in fact, in our communities. You know, the fact that we were singled out, couldn't hold tangi, all that sort of thing.
Can't be trusted.
Can't be trusted. So, you know, then you know that while these statements are being made by politicians, they are highly political and dangerous statements because they are not designed to give any benefit to anybody, actually, and they're certainly not designed to make Pākehā people think that it's the right thing to do. It's that they're not designed for that at all. It was utter racism that drove those comments. And I think that sometimes we, because I had relatives who agreed with all that, you know, who agreed that we, you know, should only be allowed to have tangi for 10 people, or we shouldn't be allowed to have tangi at all, and all that sort of thing. And when we sort of talked with them and said, well, why would we do that when we haven't got COVID in our community, when we're very careful about caring for one another, when we know that hygiene and all those practices are really important, do we not trust ourselves to do the right thing, to take care of ourselves? You know, I was astonished at how much our people actually believe that a government is trying to do the right thing by us, and they don't see the racism underneath it all. You know, the mere fact that that Ardern would come out saying that, you know, number one, our tangihanga should be limited to 10 people, you know, matters like that. I mean, we had relatives die during that time, and they were too, in actual fact, they were really nervous about that notion of the police coming on to the marae. You know, there was all of that fear in them, even though people like me would say, well, we'll let them try, you know.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
But our people they were very nervous. And you know, one of the things that I loved about our people during all that is how, even though it went against everything that they believed in, how compliant they were prepared to be. You know, even our kids who would normally rally against all of that, no, not a bloomin' peep. I was really amazed at how compliant we are if we're not sure of ourselves.
Yes, yes, yeah, how reasonable we can be. And you know, that's just what systemically it's so pervasive in the behavior. Even when we continue to be done over, we nearly hongi with them and thank them for that opportunity. It's crazy and horrible, and it must end. So I just need to tell you, there are tons of messages coming to you. Just aroha kia koe for many, many. Tariana, people are just excited to hear you and to listen to you and to show love. There are countless machu, there's Jerry, Norman, many. So e mihi aroha kia koe, that's what I see everywhere. Of course, leading up to Thursday and Friday of this week, and I'll see you hopefully at with the Y2915 claim at on Thursday and Friday, and I look forward again to standing with you. That is that is a claim that we can never let go until we win, until we take back our mokopuna, which belong with tupuna. Tupuna, mokopuna belong together. They do not belong. And do you remember the state ward? The DG was the father state ward. I remember those horrible reading that legislation and just really dismayed and deeply terrified that that's what our mokopuna were having to, and mummies and whānau having to put up with. But the time has come, and you've made that possible for me in this opportunity to lead for Te Tai Tokero Tariana. We've got some kaupapa coming out, so you and I are going to be together this Thursday, Friday. Then again, we're back on Saturday. JT and I and a few others, we're going to be at Te Piringatahi Marae, having a bit of a takako and a cup of tea with whānau. On the 15th of August, Tariana, I want to let you know that we'll be launching the Mokopuna Māori policy, which I'll lead in front on the 15th of August in Kaitaia at our second rally. So, and all because of you.
Oh, golly.
And all the efforts from I know. That's right. That's right.
Never does it.
No,
I know. And I know that deep in our hearts, I think about the things that I've had the privilege of serving in terms of our people, and the things that they have required of me to do. I have never ever felt that I was doing anything that felt foreign to me. I always felt that it was the right thing to do. And like I say, when you're brought up to think about pono and tika, it's not a great measurement to put on things, but it is the only measurement that really matters.
Yes. Aira, ka tika. Pono.
Oh, look, I mean, I talk like that to my kids and to my mokos, Don't expect anything else of you. If you can be those two things, you will go a long way in life. And I think that, and I believe that too. I really believe that sincerely.
Yes.
That, if I think back over my own life, never raised by my own mother, but raised by, first of all, my grandmother. Do you know when I was born, Maria, my mother, my grandmother and my mother had promised me to this couple in Pūtiki, the Takarangi Kuia and her husband. Yes, they had promised me to them because my mother in her younger days had been engaged to their only son and he got killed overseas. So when they knew that my mother was pregnant, they went and they asked her for me. Oh, sorry, my dog's playing up.
Got something to say?
Yes, having something to say. But, my whāngai dad came and took me from the hospital, never gave the Takarangi family the chance to get me. And he took me home to my grandmother and he told her that she was wrong to have agreed to give me to them. And that their job was to raise me. It wasn't to give me to somebody else. So, look, I had the most privileged upbringing of any mokopuna. I did. And, when I look at photos of myself as a kid, all my clothes, because there were 7 of us brought up by our nanny, all my clothes are hand-me-downs. So everything I've got on is far too big for me. Oh, look, honestly, I look like a little rag doll.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. But do you know what? Each time I see any of those photos, I think, wow, to think that despite not having much at all in terms of material things, I had the most amazing childhood. I did. Very loved, completely raised in a village type atmosphere.
Yes.
Yeah, and
by whānau, and yes.
Yeah, by whānau. And you know what? I had the privilege when I was back here living before Parliament. We formed a Matua Whāngai group, and we had children whose families were putting children up for adoption. Well, we would step in and we would go back to the hapu and the iwi of that child and ask them who they would want to have this baby. Do you know what really amazed me is that 9 times out of 10, they didn't choose our families who were economically settled in themselves. They chose wānau who lived back at home close to the marae. It was quite incredible. And I think to myself, wow, you know, this is not about material goods that our families can provide to these tamariki, but it's about maintaining the essence of who they are. That was the most important thing.
Well, don't be surprised if that's featured in the policy, because that just makes Māori sense to me and to every Māori that's listening. It just makes complete sense, Tariana. And I want to thank you for that. We're just coming right at the end of our hui tonight. Yes, I know, that's gone far too quickly. We could keep going, couldn't we? We might take that opportunity this Thursday, Friday, but again, Tariana, our greatest of love and admiration for you and your whānau and your darling George and all the whānau. Just, I look forward to seeing you Thursday, Friday. And again, the messages here are all love and kindness and gratitude. So, and again, for me, running for Taitokoro, I'm the Rawiri would call it, I'm the candidate in waiting. Our next level of promotion, it's so funny. I know now there's a thing called a comms and a graphic designer and all those clever people that make what I say make sense. I know they're very smart. And so we've come up with our new what do you call it, promotion statement, which is Taitokoro votes Kapa-Kingi. So we're just asserting that. So anyway, that's probably enough for now. Tariana, our greatest of love to you. If there's anything you'd like to finish as we finish off.
Well, only to mihi to the people of Taitokoro, and to say to you that when I was in Parliament, you were an amazing people to me, and I will be forever, ever grateful. And I remember coming up there to the hokianga prior to getting into Parliament to start our health services, and we modelled them on the hokianga health. So, you know, forever grateful to you for your manaakitanga i ngā wā katoa. Nā reira, kānui te mahira wātu kia koutou.
Tēnā koe, Tariana. Tēnā no tātou katoa, kānui tēnā mō tēnei pō. Pō Māori e tātou.
Kia ora.
Okay, I wonder if we can read.